Hi, my name is Jessica Hewitt, and for this project, I created a game around Jeopardy. So this is Jeopardy for equations of lines. My target audience it is for high school mathematics classes, specifically for geometry or algebra 2 classes. Some curricular goals for this activity is that this game is intended for review of equations of lines. It is a scaled review, so the questions in different categories range from less difficult to more difficult. So each category is going to have a dollar amount associated with it, and if you choose a question for $100, that is going to be easier than if there is a question for $500. And then there is a final Jeopardy question that incorporates many different categories into one question. So it incorporates slope, maybe parallel or perpendicular lines, writing equations of lines, maybe something to do with solutions, all into one question for students to answer. And then students will have to work together to score the most points to win the game. So for our demonstration, students will be broken up into teams. I said 3 to 4 teams depending on the number of students you have in that class. Each team will have a chance at answering a question. They will choose a category and the amount that they would like to answer. Students will have to each work out the problem and agree on an answer before sharing their answer with the teacher. So every single student in that group will have to write the question down and answer on a sheet of paper themselves before they can agree on their final score or answer, and then share it with the teacher. If students get it right, that amount will be awarded to them. If students answer wrong, the amount will be deducted from their final score. So this is the categories with different point values. So different categories, I have slope, parallel lines, perpendicular lines, equations, and solutions. And then as you can see down at the bottom, there is a final Jeopardy question. So this is what one of the questions would look like. So if students chose category 1, which was slope, for $100, the question would say, what is the slope of the line y equals 2x plus 3? The answer, what is m equals 2, will not show up on the screen at first. Once students have worked out the question and they all agree on the answer, then this teacher can hit the space bar and the final answer will show up. So for example, here is the home screen. So if I chose parallel lines for $200, this is what the question would look like. So what is the slope of the line parallel to 3x plus 4 equals 1/3 y plus 2? Once students worked that out, found the slope, then raise their hand, tell me the answer, and if I hit the space bar, then the slope, or the answer, what is m equals 9, would show up. There is a little home button down here that you can press as well. So if you press the home button, then let's say if you want perpendicular lines for 100, what is the slope of the line perpendicular? I'm going to tell you the answer, m equals -1/2. That is the final answer. And again, there is a home button down here. It is just not in the screen that I have recorded right here. And then the final Jeopardy question down here, if you went to go click on that, again, it's just not in the screen that I have recorded. There's music. So for the final Jeopardy, there is that music theme song that is played, and students will have to answer the final Jeopardy question. And they can range what amount they would like to wager on that. So whether they would like to wager $100 or $600, it all depends on the amount that they have totaled up. And if they get it right, then they get that amount. But if they get it wrong, that amount is deducted from their score. So some benefits and drawbacks. A benefit is that students will be working together to review equations of lines. If students have questions, they can clear it up within their group. I really like this because students can really get into whether or not they're doing it correct. Especially if students come up with different answers, they can kind of explain where they're coming from and hopefully understand where they might have made the mistake. However, in the past, I have had other groups answer the questions, even if it is not their turn, to keep them occupied during the review. I have played this game where students, if it is not their turn, they're just kind of sitting there and watching, and I felt like that wasn't a great like use of their time in class when reviewing. So I've had students all working out the questions individually. And if students turn in all of the questions worked out, I've given them like 1 or 2 bonus points on their test for equations of lines, which has helped them. And the bonus points keep them motivated to make sure that they're focused in class. One drawback of this is that one student might take over in the group and answer all of the questions, leaving other students behind. To avoid this, I let all students know that they need to have their work written down on paper. So again, I need to see that every student is working in the group. And if they tell me an answer and I think it's a great question and I want to work through it with everybody, then I can call on anyone in the group to explain their answer. So if in a group Susie says the answer, but I can call on Billy over here in the same group to explain how they got that answer. So it kind of keeps them on their toes. So that way one student isn't doing all of the work and that every student is kind of being actively engaged in the class. So the next game we move in education, I think incorporating games helps students stay focused on content in a non-traditional way. So I think students are really used to sitting down and doing a worksheet and turning it in, or doing these practice problems, turning it in. But using games is a non-traditional way for students to stay focused on that content and practice it. Educators should incorporate more games in education to help students increase their critical thinking skills. So I strongly believe that games should be incorporated in my classroom. And I try to incorporate them as much as I can. Like I said, it kind of helps students increase their critical thinking skills, realize that I'm not always going to be right there, that they kind of have to figure things out by themselves first. And with a lot of school districts on hybrid schedules, gaming can be a way for students to practice the content at home with less stress. So if they're at home, it might be easier for them to be able to sit down and finish a game that reviews content compared to sitting down and doing another worksheet worth of 20 questions when they just finished 4 other worksheets from different classes. However, games may not reach all types of students. There may be students in your class that like the more traditional worksheet type of work, and then other students who may work the games, who may like the games. So finding that balance between the two and really being able to see if you can read your audience and the students in your class. So that way you can figure out who would prefer games and who likes a more traditional way would be best. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.